dialogue, whatever the case may be. But there are evil forces that want to do us all in. And we have to be aware of that. The second thing we have to be aware of, and I think it's very important, is that there is a certain amount of stress and levels of anxiety and tension that are healthy for our growth. A certain amount of levels of anxiety and tension are healthy for our growth. You were given a rubber band when you came in. And a rubber band was meant to what? To stretch, to have a certain amount of flexibility to it. Elasticity, if you will. There's also something else that's true about rubber bands, just like it's true about you and me. If you stretch that rubber band far enough, what can happen? It can pop. Same thing with you and me. We should have a certain amount of tension in our life on a regular basis. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people pray, Lord, take all the stress and all the anxiety away from him. I'm like, good Lord, you'd have such a boring life. You really want God to answer that prayer for you. I'll come see you in the hospital in a couple months. Because you will spiral down. Listen, that's why a lot of churches are dying. That's why a lot of organizations are dying. That's why a lot of nonprofits are dying. That's why a lot of companies and businesses are dying. They don't want any stress. They don't want any challenge. They don't want any pressure. Well, if you want to do that, then you're not going to lead. You're not going to try to get better at what you're doing. You're not going to stretch yourself at all. You're just going to have a flat-out, boring, non-existent life. We were created to be challenged. Hardly nobody that Jesus encountered in the New Testament was not challenged by him in some capacity to become better, grow better, leave behind something that was not good for them and not conducive for their growth. Jesus consistently challenged people. He stretched them. He stretched them. Consistently did that. Now, there's something to be said about being overstretched. Of course there is. And that's why we need to learn to navigate. Jesus never said, come to me and I'll remove all the stress and anxiety from your life. He never said that. Here's what he said. Let's look at it. Let's unpack it for a moment. What does he say? What does Jesus say in the text? Well, I'm glad I've got it right here. He said, God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you. You are my followers. Be happy about it. What? Just in case you didn't hear the first part, be very glad. For a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. Paul says it like this in the book of Romans. He says, rejoice. Again, I say rejoice in your suffering. For suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint us. Certain amount of stress and challenges in your life are opportunities to grow and strengthen your character. What do I do in this situation? Do I just throw my hands up and walk away? Character says, don't do that. Don't quit. Winners and leaders play hurt. Let me say that again. Winners and leaders play hurt. There are times you just suck it up and go. There are times when you just get a little more grit and you push forward. There are times when you say, God is our helper. We'll move this thing forward. And when you stand up with a sense of faith and conviction like that, you'll inspire other people around you. You'll inspire other people around you. But all too often, we want to play the victim. All too often, we get one little slap. Oh, I got we go over in the corner and we find the place of the slapped. And then we want folks to throw us things. Come over here in the corner and play victim with me. We'll all be victim together. And then there's some real sick theology that grows out of some of that stuff. Whenever people really mess up and do some crazy things, and somebody tries to make them feel better and comes along beside them and says, oh, you're building your testimony. I said, they ain't building their testimony. They just came back from stupid. They just did some stupid stuff and they're just coming back from stupid. Don't make them feel better about being stupid. God's got a better plan for them, a great plan, a redemptive plan. But forget about this building your testimony crap. Paul tears that stuff all to pieces. He says if you're going to boast, don't boast in anything that you've done. Don't boast in anything that you would declare to be redemptive. Boast only in Jesus Christ. Because everything else is dung. That's right. He said dung. I got something else in mind. but it's all dung. Everything I've ever done, every accomplishment, everything that I've ever, he said he was a Pharisee of the Pharisees. You couldn't get hardly any more faithful than him. Talk about a testimony. He said, none of that compares to what Christ has done for me.